For the first half of the 20th century, the fastest thing in American law enforcement was not a car, it was a motorcycle. Lean, quick, able to split through traffic that left squad cars stranded, the police motorcycle was the cutting edge of pursuit for decades. Departments bought them by the thousands. Entire elite units were built around them. And then, over the span of about 20 years, they nearly vanished from American patrol work. The strange part is what killed them. It was not a faster car. It was not cost. It was a heavy, power-hungry box of vacuum tubes and wires, a piece of technology so bulky the motorcycle simply could not carry it. The police motorcycle has one of the most counterintuitive histories in all of law enforcement. It arrived before the police car was practical. It dominated pursuit and traffic work for decades. And then it was pushed to the margins of policing, not by a better vehicle, but by a revolution in how police communicated. You will see how the earliest police motorcycles launched American motor policing around 1908 and gave us a nickname officers still use today. You will meet the visionary police chief who built one of the first motor units and, in a twist of historical irony, also championed the very technology that would doom it. You will see the golden age when motorcycle cops ruled American traffic enforcement and the bootleggers who outgunned them. And you will see the exact technological shift that pushed the motorcycle aside, a shift so fundamental that it did not just change what police drove, but how police worked. By the end of this video, you will understand why the thing that killed the police motorcycle is the same thing that made the modern patrol car indispensable. The motorcycle did not lose a race, it lost a seat. In the first years of the 20th century, American police had a mobility problem with no good solution. Horses were slow, expensive to stable and feed, and increasingly useless against motorized criminals. The automobile existed, but around 1905 it was unreliable, costly, and hopelessly ill-suited to the roads of the era, because there essentially were no roads. By some estimates, the entire United States had only a few hundred miles of paved road outside its cities in this period. A police department that wanted to move an officer faster than walking pace across rutted dirt and mud had very few options, until a new machine arrived that was cheap, fast, and perfectly suited to the era's primitive conditions. That machine was the motorcycle. American motor policing is usually traced to 1908, when the Detroit Police Department is widely credited with putting some of the first Harley-Davidson motorcycles into police service. The exact first is genuinely disputed. Several departments, including Pittsburgh a few years later, ran early motorcycle units, and the honor depends on how you define it. But the era is clear. Right around 1908 and 1909, American police forces began climbing onto two wheels. The early machines were light, single-cylinder bikes making only a handful of horsepower, with top speeds around 40 miles per hour. But compared to a horse, they were a revelation. And they gave us a word we still use. According to police history law, the term motor officer traces back to these very first years, when a department's lone motorcycle patrolman was simply nicknamed Motor. And more than a century later, motorcycle police across America are still called motor officers. Whether the honor belongs to one specific officer or grew up in several cities at once, the language stuck, and it stuck early. The two companies that would define police motorcycling for the next century were already in the fight. Indian, founded in Springfield, Massachusetts, was building fast, affordable machines and marketing them aggressively to departments. In some cities, an officer was hired specifically because he already owned an Indian and could ride it on duty. Harley-Davidson, founded in Milwaukee, was moving into the same market and would eventually come to dominate it. For the first time, a patrolman could be handed a vehicle faster than almost anything else on the road, costing a fraction of what a car cost, able to navigate the narrow, rutted streets of early 20th century America. But the man who turned the motorcycle from a novelty into a system was a Berkeley, California police chief named August Vollmer, the figure often called the father of modern American policing. Vollmer was obsessed with mobility and speed of response. He put his officers on bicycles, upgraded them to motorcycles around 1911, and moved to patrol cars by 1913 and 1914, making Berkeley one of the first fully motorized departments in the country. He didn't just buy the machines, he modified them with saddlebags for police gear and wrote some of the first formal policies governing how a motor unit should operate. Departments across America would copy Berkeley's template. Remember Vollmer's name, because he returns to this story in a way that is almost unbelievably ironic. In this early era, the motorcycle wasn't just an alternative to the police car, it was clearly superior for most police work. It was cheaper, which mattered enormously to budget-constrained departments. It was more reliable than early cars on bad roads. It could thread through congested traffic and tight urban spaces that stopped a car cold. And it was fast. A police motorcycle of the 1910s could pursue and catch nearly any vehicle on the road. There was one more advantage, a psychological one. Flashing lights and sirens didn't even become common on police motorcycles until the mid-1930s. But the mere sight of a uniformed officer on a motorcycle in the mirror was enough to make most motorists pull over on their own. The look itself became iconic, and it came from an unexpected place. As the motorcycle officer became the visible symbol of American mobile policing, departments dressed him in the boots, breeches, and crossed-strap uniform of the horse-mounted officers he was replacing. The motorcycle cop inherited the cavalry's wardrobe, and that is why, to this day, a motor officer in tall boots and jodhpur-style breeches looks faintly like a man who should be on horseback. The First World War supercharged everything. Harley-Davidson supplied roughly 20,000 motorcycles for the war effort, where they proved invaluable for dispatching messages and fast scouting in an age before reliable battlefield radio. When the war ended, the United States was left with a surplus of military motorcycles and sidecars, and police departments snapped them up at reduced prices, rapidly expanding their motor units. By the mid-1920s, Harley-Davidson had a dedicated department devoted to fleet sales to law enforcement, and its motorcycles were becoming a fixture of American policing. The motorcycle found its perfect role with the explosion of automobile traffic in the 1920s. As ordinary Americans bought cars by the millions, well over 20 million were registered in the United States by the late 1920s. Speeding and reckless driving became major public safety crises, and the motorcycle was the ideal tool to fight back. A motor officer could hide, accelerate instantly, run down a speeding car, and pull it over with an agility no patrol car could match. By the end of the 1920s, Harley-Davidson motorcycles alone were reportedly in service with around 3,000 police departments. But the 1920s also brought a problem the motorcycle could not always outrun: prohibition. Bootleggers, flush with cash from illegal liquor, could afford the fastest machines money could buy, and they knew exactly which ones to get. Police departments typically rode Harley's smaller displacement models. The bootleggers went out and bought the bigger, faster 74 cubic inch versions that could simply out-accelerate the police bikes chasing them. For a few years on the back roads of America, the law was sometimes literally riding a slower motorcycle than the criminals, which only pushed departments to demand more and faster machines. Through the 1930s, the police motorcycle reached its peak of power and prestige. Major departments built large, elite motorcycle divisions handling traffic enforcement, escort duty, parades, and pursuit. Being a motor officer carried real status. It demanded skill, nerve, and a particular toughness. The machines kept getting faster, and by the mid-1930s, the biggest police V-twins could reach speeds of around 100 miles per hour, genuinely quick for the era. Through the 1930s and into the 1940s, the police motorcycle was not a relic or a niche tool. It was at the very center of American traffic and pursuit policing. But even at the height of the motorcycle's dominance, a change was beginning that would eventually push it to the edges of police work. It had nothing to do with speed and nothing to do with the motorcycle's obvious weaknesses. What was about to change was something far more fundamental, the way police officers received their orders. And the motorcycle, for all its speed and agility, had no place to put the technology that was coming. Now, the police motorcycle always had serious drawbacks, and it is worth being honest about them because they are the weaknesses most people assume killed it. A motorcycle is dangerous. An officer is brutally exposed in a crash in a way a driver in a car is not, and motor officers suffered high injury and fatality rates. A motorcycle offers no protection from weather. Rain, snow, and cold made motorcycle patrol miserable and sometimes impossible. And critically, a motorcycle cannot transport a prisoner. An officer who made an arrest on a motorcycle had to call for a wagon or a car to actually take the suspect in. Here is the key point. All of those weaknesses existed from the very beginning, and none of them stopped the motorcycle from dominating for decades. Departments simply accepted them because the motorcycle's advantages, speed, agility, low cost, outweighed them for the specific jobs it did. A traffic enforcement motorcycle did not need to carry prisoners. It needed to catch speeders, and it did that better than anything on the road. The weaknesses were the price of admission, not a death sentence. For the motorcycle to be pushed aside, something had to change in the fundamental value equation, something that made the car's advantages suddenly overwhelming. Part of that change was the steady improvement of the automobile. By the 1930s and the 1940s, cars had become far more reliable and capable, and roads had improved enormously. A patrol car could now go almost anywhere and do almost anything in any weather while carrying multiple officers and prisoners. The car was catching up to the motorcycle in the very areas where the motorcycle had once been far ahead. But on its own, this still was not enough to displace it from the jobs it did best. The decisive factor was the two-way radio. The story began in Detroit in 1928 when the police department set up the first practical one-way radio system to broadcast calls out to its patrol cars, a station so improvised that to satisfy federal licensing rules, it had to be registered as an entertainment station and play music between the crime reports. Then, in 1933, the Bayonne, New Jersey Police Department built the first true two-way system, letting an officer in a car talk back to headquarters. This connected the officer in the field to a central dispatcher in real time, and it was one of the most important developments in the history of policing. And here is the irony promised earlier. August Vollmer, the same Berkeley chief who had built one of America's first motorcycle units 2 decades before, was, by the 1930s, one of the most influential champions of putting radios and modern communications technology into police work. He didn't invent the police radio. That credit belongs to the engineers and officers in Detroit and Bayonne. But as the nation's leading voice for police professionalization and technology, Vollmer helped drive the very shift that would dethrone the motorcycle he had done so much to put on the street. The man who helped put American police on motorcycles also helped usher in the radio car that replaced them. A radio-equipped car was no longer just transportation. It was a mobile node in a citywide command network, able to receive calls, coordinate with other units, and respond to incidents anywhere in the city the instant they were reported. And here was the problem the motorcycle could not solve. Early two-way radios were enormous, heavy, power-hungry pieces of equipment full of fragile vacuum tubes. They needed a place for the controls, a trunk or a back seat to hold the bulky set, and a substantial electrical system and battery to power it all. A car had all of that. A motorcycle had none of it. There was simply nowhere on a motorcycle to mount a two-way radio from the 1930s, no electrical capacity to run it, and no practical way for a rider to operate it while controlling the bike at speed. The motorcycle, for all its quickness, could not be plugged into the new command network. The radio car could. This is what the hook meant. The motorcycle didn't lose a race, it lost a seat. The seat where the radio had to go. This changed everything about how police patrolled. A motor officer operated largely on his own, following a route, reacting only to what he could see in front of him. A radio car officer was connected, directed to calls, coordinated with the entire department, able to respond to a crime reported blocks away that he never would have witnessed. As policing increasingly organized itself around radio dispatch and rapid response to calls, the disconnected motorcycle officer became less and less central to the core mission. The car wasn't just a vehicle anymore. It was the only thing that could carry the technology policing now depended on. If forgotten corners of police history like this are your kind of thing, subscribe to Badges and Chrome. There's a lot more coming. Now you might think this is the whole story. The radio killed the motorcycle, the car took over, the end. But the truth is more interesting because the police motorcycle didn't actually die. It was pushed out of one role and survived in another. And in the 1950s, even as it faded from general patrol, the motorcycle enjoyed one of its most colorful moments in the spotlight. As post-war America moved to the suburbs, cars got faster and new freeways pushed average speeds up. Traffic deaths climbed alarmingly, and departments turned right back to the motor officer to fight the carnage. Cities formed flashy, specialized motorcycle squads with names to match. Pittsburgh ran a hot rod squad of Harley officers to chase down street racing teenagers. Most famous of all were the Tennessee Yellow Jackets of 1958, officers on bright yellow and black Harleys in matching uniforms, designed to be impossible to miss. The Yellow Jackets operated for only about 6 months, but they left such an impression that departments copied the look for years afterward. This was also the era that burned a permanent image into American culture. The motorcycle cop parked behind a highway billboard, waiting to chase down a speeder. That icon was born precisely because the motorcycle remained unbeatable at one specific job, even as it lost all the others. And that reveals the real twist. The police motorcycle never actually disappeared. It is still here, in service with almost every major American department today. What changed wasn't the motorcycle's existence, but its role. For the first half of the 20th century, the motorcycle had been forced to be a generalist, doing all kinds of police work simply because the car wasn't ready and the radio didn't yet exist. It was never truly suited to that generalist role. It couldn't carry a prisoner, shelter an officer, or in the end, carry a radio. Its real genius had always been something narrower and sharper, specialized speed and agility work, above all, traffic enforcement. So when the radio car arrived and took over general patrol, it didn't destroy the motorcycle. It relieved it. It lifted away the general patrol burden the motorcycle was never well suited for, and freed it to concentrate on the one thing it had always done better than any car. Consider what a motorcycle can still do that a cruiser cannot. Sit unobtrusively, accelerate instantly, weave through gridlock to reach a violator, and thread through a jammed city to reach a crash scene. For catching a single speeding vehicle in heavy traffic, the motorcycle remains to this day often the best tool there is. The radio revolution made it obsolete for the connected, dispatch-driven work of general patrol, but it had no effect whatsoever on the motorcycle's supremacy at the chase through traffic. So the real story isn't that the motorcycle was killed, it's that it was finally put in its proper place. What looks like the death of the police motorcycle was really the moment American policing figured out what the motorcycle was actually for. It didn't lose, it got focused. For the first half of the 20th century, the police motorcycle was the fastest thing in American law enforcement, the cutting edge of pursuit and traffic work bought by the thousands, the center of elite specialized units, from the first Harleys of 1908 to the boots and breeches motor officers who became an American icon. Then the two-way radio arrived, and the patrol car became something the motorcycle could never be, a connected node in a citywide command network, able to carry the bulky technology that modern policing now ran on. But the motorcycle didn't die. It stepped back from general patrol and concentrated into the jobs it had always done best: traffic enforcement and escort work, where its speed and agility still have no equal. The thing that pushed it out of one role is the same thing that clarified its true purpose in another. Today, when you see a motor officer pull alongside a speeder, weaving through traffic that has every squad car stuck in place, you're watching the survival of the oldest pursuit vehicle in American law enforcement, doing the one job it was always secretly built for. This is Badges and Chrome, the channel that covers the police cars and the police motorcycles almost forgot. Subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.